So hyperinflation or deflation? Well, what if it's neither? Persistent high inflation without the hyper. Remember, money velocity, which is very important, can be shut down in a whim by locking down the economy. So if we have a situation whereby persistent high inflation occurs, but not necessarily hyperinflation, this would mean that the asset price bubble has a little while longer to go yet. Now, when will the Fed raise rates? When will the Fed taper monthly bond purchases? And when will bank credit growth slow down? All these questions will dictate when the top of the asset bubble will be in.
We acquired it because we saw clearly that in 2008, of course, the world's financial system was coming to an end. And we saw that coming.
Fucking tell us. Oh, I give up.
With regards to high inflation, how long could this asset bubble go on for? People say, hey, it's overextended in many asset classes, and it is, but it can still go on for a little while longer yet. And it's important to realize that there are three things that can provide the catalyst for when the bubble is going to pop, when the asset price top is in. Now, number one, we have the fact that the Fed will raise rates at some point. When will that happen, and how extreme will that rate increase be? Number two, we have the Fed reducing monthly bond purchases. Now, the Fed is currently buying $120 billion of bonds every single month, and its balance sheet is going exponential as a result. And when will that slow down? When will they taper monthly bond purchases? And how severe will that taper be? As well as this, when will bank credit growth start to slow down? Of course, banks create the credit in the economy. Banks create the money supply. So when will that slow down? When will bank credit creation slow down? That will be a sign. And these three things are very pertinent in terms of when the asset bubble top will be in, and then we will have the crash, and then the bear market, and then the pain, and then from the pain we'll have the remedy, which will be the new economic system, powered by central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. And this is a more totalitarian and technocratic centralized system, but it will be welcomed with open arms by the public. People say, hey, there's going to be a fourth turning, a crisis, there's going to be a revolution. No, actually there's not. The propaganda is just far too strong at the moment, and the Milgram experiment is being applied to great effect.
How do you feel, by the way?
I feel all right, but I don't like what's happened. That I fall in there. He's been howling, and we had to keep giving him shocks. I didn't like that one bit. I mean, he wanted to get out, and he just kept going, kept throwing 450 volts. I didn't like that. He wouldn't even look at on that gentleman.
Well, who was actually pushing the switch?
I was. But he kept insisting. I told him no, but he said, it's got to keep going. I told him it's time we stopped when we got up to 195, 210 volts.
But why didn't you just stop?
He wouldn't let me. I wanted to stop.
Many people, not knowing much about the experiment, claim that subjects who go to the end of the board are sadistic. Nothing could be more foolish as an overall characterization of these persons. The context of their action must always be considered. The individual, upon entering the laboratory, becomes integrated into a situation that carries its own momentum. The results, as I observe them in the laboratory, are disturbing. They raise the possibility that human nature cannot be counted on to insulate men from brutality and inhumane treatment at the direction of malevolent authority. A substantial proportion of people do what they are told to do, irrespective of the content of the act and without limitations of conscience, so long as they perceive that the command comes from a legitimate authority. If in this study an anonymous experimenter could successfully command adults to subdue a 50-year-old man and force on him painful electric shocks against his protests, one can only wonder what government, with its vastly greater authority and prestige, can command of its subjects.
Effectively, any new system requires a crisis in order to justify its existence and replace the old system. And this is happening with the economic system itself. We have the controlled demolition of the old economic system and the new economic system driven by CBDCs.
By the time we will proceed with, or if we proceed with the central bank digital currency, you can be sure that the legal basis will be sound.
Palantir, a company with very close ties to the intelligence world, the CIA specifically, have recently announced the purchase of $51 million worth of gold as protection from a future with more black swan events. So when a company with close ties to the intelligence world is saying that they are preparing for a future with more black swan events, one should take notice of this. Imagine you were one of the owners of the chessboard. In 2011, you had a slight problem. You had the Occupy Wall Street protests, and the issue here is you had the 99% against the 1%. Now, The investment bankers weren't responsible necessarily for the 2008 financial crisis. They didn't do anything illegal, but it was of course unethical. And they blamed the investment bankers, right? The whole idea of Occupy was the big banks, they are above the law, they are doing unethical things, etc. And it is unfair that taxpayer money bailed them out. Well, these are reasonable points, however, they didn't actually do anything illegal, maybe it was unethical, but it was the central bankers, the regulators, and by extension the people who own the chessboard itself, who were ultimately responsible for the 2008 financial crisis. And they were getting too close to the sun. The Occupy Wall Street protesters were getting too close to the sun. They were starting to see the top of the pyramid, and hey, this is a rigged game. So if you are in this position, you can only use the investment bankers as a shield for so long until the Occupy protesters, which can potentially grow in size, start to look at you, and you need to take action. So what do? Well, you own the mainstream media. So what you do is this. You instruct all of your mainstream media outlets to run and push social justice narratives, divide and conquer. And the explosion, the exponential increase in mentions of these social justice terms since 2011 is no coincidence. It is a narrative that is being pushed through capital, through ownership. You own the mainstream media, right? You can do what you want. So that was very effective and it worked. Divide and conquer always works in a population. It can be divided on various different factors, and the Occupy response from the owners of the chessboard was very successful and worked. And we've seen in the last 2 years specifically a real push in terms of these social justice movements. And it's not about the individual liberties and freedoms of these specific groups, the rights of these groups. No, it's about power and control. Moreover, when you're on your super yacht in international waters, getting up to no good, you can watch the TV, turn the TV on, you'll see the mainstream media that you own, and they'll be playing these social justice narratives, and you can laugh with your friends. Safe in the knowledge that the population, the castle, are focusing on arguments, they are focused on ideologies, and they are arguing with each other instead of looking at you who own the chessboard. So, very good, well played.
The Iron Bank is the Iron Bank. There is no someone.
Someone does work there. It is comprised of people.
And a temple is comprised of stones. One stone crumbles and another takes its place. And the temple holds its form for 1,000 years or more. And that's what the Iron Bank is, a temple. We all live in its shadow, and almost none of us know it.